Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Pedalshift. On this edition, we go all the way back to October 12th, 2015, completing, if you will, our series with Brock Dittus and Adele Dittus on the Pedalshift Project as part of a crossover with Sprocket Podcast, episode 259, which I definitely encourage you to check out. This was a fun episode. This was the second part of our chat where we talked about the types of folks that you end up meeting on bicycle tour, the ones that we like, and, well, I tell a story about some of the people that I didn't care so much about on bicycle tour. I believe this one gets a little salty as well, so language warning for you. I believe we earn our explicit tag on this episode as well. By the way, folks, if you are into the Brock Dittus content, may I introduce you to next week's episode in the main stem brand new edition of the Pedalshift Project. Next week, episode 329, the working title is Brock's Solo Oregon Tour featuring Brock. Yes, we have guest tour journals next week, episode 329 on the pod. But until then, this is a true best of episode 032. Hope you enjoy.
Okay, let's talk about people that we've met on tour. Let's pivot.
Okay.
Let's pivot. Because I talked about the guy that I didn't care for. I've got another one.
Assholes everywhere.
Well,
many of them.
We have certain
And
categories.
I may be that guy. Here's the thing.
And so may I.
I may be that guy in someone else's podcast.
Sure.
It's possible.
Okay.
I acknowledge
Well, that's
this.
good to acknowledge that, to,
Yeah.
have a nice moment of self-recognition.
No. These are the people that are wrong.
Are you a misogynist?
Yeah, are
Do
you
make
racist?
These people
sexual
that are
jokes
the assholes.
to
No.
servers?
Right.
Well, I think Brock, chime in, but I think we have a certain category of cyclists that we are wary of. It's the kind of touring cyclists who, there's two. Okay. One of them.
I love that you have categories.
We do. We're just like, we just talked to that person and they totally fit in this category.
Several prejudices.
One is like the kind of cycle tourist who just only wants to talk about what they do, about themselves.
The teller, not the listener. Yeah.
And this is like more a manifestation of their personality where they just want to talk about all the cool places they've been, all the mileages they've been doing, and they don't ask you, or if they ask you, it's just sort of like a perfunctory thing. They're just like, where are you from?
Have you done this?
I did that route once.
I did that. Yeah. So, like, we certainly run into a lot of people who are just like, all just want to just talk about themselves the whole time. And then the other person, it's not a cycle tourist, but it's just
the bystander.
The bystander who's just like, where'd you start today? How far are you coming from? How many pounds are you carrying? And we're like, we don't know how much
How
weight.
heavy is your bike?
We don't care. We don't care how heavy our bike is. We don't care how many pounds our bags is. We take what we need and we go. We're just like, we don't care. So we've had so that's the general categories. And then we, of course, have very specific instances of these obnoxious types.
Yeah, and I think the trick is usually it's someone that catches us at the wrong time. Like, I might be open to answering those questions if I hadn't just climbed an enormous hill in wet clothes and wanted to change and then have just a quiet moment to myself.
Could you give me 5 minutes, dude?
Right.
That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the worst was this summer, and we're both thinking of the guy at Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Pass, who we were halfway at Mackenzie Pass, which is in Central Oregon in the Cascades.
Beautiful area if you have not been.
Probably one of my favorite rides.
Gorgeous area.
Ever. And we're about halfway up, and Brock goes to change his socks.
Yep, and everything else.
And so
I was just waiting for this to be another Brock underwear story.
Brock goes in to quietly change his underwear.
Please listen to past episodes of the Sprocket Podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. And this guy comes up to me and asks me the usual barrage of questions, hones in. And he's like, where'd you start? And I honestly couldn't remember. I was like, where did we? Over there. So I'm like, over at a campground.
Just kind of pointing in a direction.
And then, how heavy is your bike? Blah, blah. And I gave him pretty vague answers.
Yeah.
Clearly didn't quite satisfy his need for answers. So then Brock comes out.
So I stumble out of the Porta-John where I've been changing my clothes.
And the guy knows we're together. So my answers, and I also took it personally as a female. I was like, my answer is the woman, where he's going to go ask the man who knows all the data.
And I'm slapping my wet socks. I had changed everything except the socks, so I'm slapping those across the pavement as I walk back to my bike.
So the guy walks up to Brock and asks him exactly the same questions that he asked me. Verbatim.
It's like you're being cross-examined.
I'm
here,
unaware of Adele's interaction. I have no idea what she just told him.
And I'm across the street, and I'm just like, oh my God, that fucker. Like,
so he's like, where'd you start today? And I'm like, over there.
Yeah. And, Brock actually pointed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, your wife said you started over there.
Yeah.
How far do you go every day? How much does it weigh?
Yeah.
And it's just all these questions that are just like, well, see, the thing is, I feel like to me, I feel like I'm being mined for information. They don't care about me. They don't care about my story. They don't want to know anything about me as a person. They want to know, like, oh, what are you doing?
I think it's a self-ego. Like, I think people who, this is my theory, is that people who barrage you with those questions, they're comparing you, because this guy was athletic. Like, I think he probably rides a bike a lot, like for sport and for sport. And
My carbon fiber bike weighs 17 grams.
Yeah. So
Also, he showed up to that particular destination in a car.
Yeah. I think people are kind of wanting to measure, and I like to measure myself against people. I get it, but
People like to measure things that they have.
I don't do it quite so aggressively. So I think people who ask you that, they're like kind of trying to measure you against them. Like, oh, well, like I could do what they do.
Yeah, right. You're not impressive.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Oh, and he had that air. He kind of like wrote us off. He was like, oh, you only started there. Okay, whatever.
Was his name Scott by any chance? Because my guy was Scott.
we
I'm going
did
to get
not
back
get
to
his
Might have
name.
been.
Yeah, I'm going to get to Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, see, the thing is too, like I want to assume the best out of people. I want to assume that
too.
they're doing okay. That like generally humanity, I'm okay. I've had my periods of misanthropy, and I'm like, sometimes I don't like humanity, and I don't want to hang out with them. Oftentimes that's in the middle of a bike tour when I've been thrown into humanity all of a sudden because there's like a rock somewhere that's different than the other rocks around, and it's just like. I try really hard. But at the same time, as much as the responsibility lies on me to have a good attitude as much of the time as possible, there's also these people that just don't know how to ask questions.
Yeah.
So
And if it comes from a place of they're genuinely curious, and they want to understand, usually that comes across. Even though sometimes it's a little tough. It's like the weight of my bike I'm not sure of, but it's probably about 40 pounds. It's just sort of like, and it's different from a person who's coming at it. It's just like they're genuinely curious. They're like, whoa, this blows my freaking mind.
And I can tell, and I usually answer those people genuinely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. I've resisted doing this particular segment on the show for 31 episodes, even though I feel like I think we all go through it.
everyone understands this, but you have to build a track record that says like, I'm not just about complaining about people.
and I think I really want to make sure that I say this. I think anybody who's listening to the show, who's sort of like followed the show and is like with it, and I think any of the listeners of your show, you're not any of these people. I'm pretty sure.
Generally, yeah.
Because if you sort of vibe with what we're doing, you're not amongst this group at all. But I think you've probably experienced some of these people.
Right.
So let me make fun of Scott.
Okay. What happened with Scott?
Oh God, this is gonna be so liberating. Okay, I haven't done this on a podcast.
And I feel like
Stretching
this
to
is
get ready
like
for it.
catharsis. I feel so like cleansed
Okay,
right now.
so Scott, or Scott the Biker, as he liked to refer to himself. So, not unlike the gentleman that I ran into, it was somebody who was just sort of like their vibe just doesn't work. It's just like you're trying to like have your own thing, your own space. And it's somebody who just poisons your experience.
An intrusive personality?
Thank you. That's actually a much better way of putting it.
Okay.
So I'm on, I can't remember which of the Pacific Coast bike tours. It's all West Coast, by the way. It seems like it happens.
Yeah.
And
Wait, did you do it in 2009?
no.
Okay.
Because we were on that. Maybe we were Scott.
I feel like I met a Scott, but I'm not sure.
Scott. Well, okay, so Scott
There's usually a
Scott was an experienced bike tourist.
Okay.
But I know that because he made sure to tell me
He shared about it all the time.
a lot.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions. So he was
Right.
making sure that everyone knew that he had done basically the route right across the central. I'm having such a brain
The
freeze.
divide?
Not the divide, but through the central, through like the bicentennial route.
Oh, yeah. Transamerica.
The trans.
I was going to say transcontinental. Nope, that's an album.
The Transcontinental.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trans Am.
The Trans Am. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes, a few sours, and I have forgotten the name of bicycling routes. Thank God.
Oh, yeah. But he'd done that.
But yes, and he had.
Boy, did he do that.
Wow.
So like every reference when somebody would like, the one thing that I remember the most, 'cause this was just constant, but the example that I remember from Scott because that's how we talked, was, somebody would be like, yeah, I've been having problems with my chain today. And then Scott would like pipe in and be like, I went through a chain when I biked across the country on the Transcontinental. And we're like, or in the Trans Am. And we're like, great, Scott. Thanks,
man.
Thanks for sharing.
It's like this is like the congregated bike tourists that all kind of landed at the same place. And he's like the one guy that's just like, yeah, I did this before.
Yeah. By the way, when I crossed the country on my bike that you guys didn't do.
Good for you, Scott. Good for you.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
So
I hate this guy already.
So annoying. Oh, I just insulted like
no. Well, I mean,
but that's the thing. It's not all Trans-American people.
No.
It's not the people that are like, just because you ride across the country doesn't mean that you're a terrible person.
Right.
But
It's just how you do it.
And also how you do it. Now, let me talk about another guy who did the exact same route that I ran into. He's the something Yeti, the bicycling Yeti I ran into, I believe last year. Totally cool guy from your neck of the woods, actually. He's from Cape Cod.
Nice.
He's a carpenter.
Never been to Cape Cod.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
we got to go someday.
I lived in
gotta make that
Massachusetts for
happen.
9 years.
And yet, okay.
Never.
I've
I
never
was
been
on
to
North
Cape Cod.
You
Shore.
were North Shore. Okay, I see.
North Shore.
North Shore.
North Shore.
Yeah, let's all do our accents. Let's all sound like Kennedy's from The Simpsons.
Wicked awesome.
Wicked, awesome, and cool. There was a video that just recently came out. I think I'd mentioned this, but I didn't finish this. I think we were talking about this on your show, or maybe in the pre-show, where there was a whale off. This was a YouTube sensation, so listeners may know of this. But it was a couple of guys, clearly from Boston, who were like, Tommy, what is that?
Oh, yeah.
That thing is a wicked. Oh, I think that thing's hurt. I think we got to call the aquarium. Oh, that's wicked crazy. It was amazing.
I saw this
I
on the
believe
internet.
it all. I believe it all.
I haven't seen it.
I'm going to
I
put
saw
this in the
that
show.
is a thing,
In
yeah.
addition to my flood video, this will also be in the show notes because why not, right?
So what if there was a flood video where you saw a whale? That'd be awesome.
On the Potomac
That would
River,
require a flood
nonetheless.
in the opposite direction. Technically feasible. I'm not going to. There are no bad ideas in brainstorming.
Would
Frog.
not wish
Yes.
that on anybody. Yeah.
Okay, so Scott. So anyway, Scott was like just. He also had like this weird gear. He was also a hyper safety guy, which I do not begrudge. But when you've got the vest that lights up with LED, like 600 LEDs around you, and you
man.
light up like a Christmas tree.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, I'm going to make a little fun of you. Just
Yeah.
a little bit. I don't begrudge anybody having this gear. I think safety
Yeah,
is great.
Sure.
But on Scott, he looked like a douche.
It kind of accentuated his already unpleasant qualities.
It did.
Okay.
It really did. So I eventually lost him because he needed to do a laundry, and I had just come around. Like, there's this really around Walala. You know Walala in California? So it's north of San Francisco,
really.
Mendocino County.
Okay. Oh,
Really,
yeah.
it's the great rolling hills. It's really nice. It's north of Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I remember.
Really beautiful. I did when my parents lived in the Bay Area. We did a Thanksgiving, and I lived in Portland. We did a Thanksgiving in Walala, so it's a town I really know really well.
Okay,
It's very,
yeah.
very quaint, very cool. Terrible cell phone coverage.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a good market and a good pizza place if you're doing the coast this summer or any summer.
Okay.
So Scott the biker.
Scott.
I'll get to Scott the biker in a second because this was the other thing that kind of got to me. I ended up ditching him because he needed to do laundry, and I'd be like, "Hey Scott, check it out, look, laundry." And then he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll catch up with you." I'm like, "Great," and I was like,
I'll catch up with
And
you.
I was thinking to myself, what did I tell this guy was my next camping plan?
Right.
Because whatever it is, I am now changing.
Because
it.
I can get out of it. Yeah.
I can totally get out of it. So the crazy thing is, this, unfortunately, I changed my plan, and so did he.
Wait,
and
so
he
you-
ended up at the same spot.
Oh, no.
So you ended up hanging out with Scott in Fort Bragg.
No, this
Bragg?
was we were in.
Get it?
Oh,
Yeah.
he was.
Sorry.
Dude, it was
That
crazy.
was dumb.
Well done. Do you have a drum roll that is not the?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, but I'm bummed. So yeah, he was like. So we were in. It's right over the Sonoma County border, and there's a county south of Walala.
Yeah.
Right in Sonoma County. Really nice campground. Actually, there are nice facilities. There's showers and everything there.
County Park.
At Sonoma
We thought
County
about
Park.
stopping there.
Did we?
I wanted to that day. We passed it.
That's what I recommend.
vaguely remember.
On
That's
the way
a
to
good
Fort
one.
Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As an alternate to Fort Ross or any of the other campsites there, I thought it was really good. That's where I ended up. Unfortunately, I thought that he wasn't, and he did. So Scott tells me.
Scott?
So if you're in North Beach in San Francisco, where I live, if you go to, and I can't remember the bar, if you could just go to this bar, just say that you know Scott or Scott the biker, and they'll probably give you a free beer.
So anybody that recommends that
Swear
sort of
to God.
approach, yeah.
We should try
Dangerous.
that if we're in
Swear to
San
God.
Francisco.
But anytime someone says-
we'll be there
So
in
So
January.
consider this a coupon code for everybody who listens to the Pedalshift Project.
Yeah, I
If you
know
just
Scott the
go
biker.
to any bar in North
Yeah.
Beach in
Any bar.
in San Francisco, just say that you know Scott or Scott the biker.
But anyone who's like, hey,
And
you can get free shit this way.
you'll
like, that
probably get a
seems
free
like
beer.
wrong approach, right?
Now that I've told the story, I'm now incredibly nervous that Scott the biker is an actual listener to my show.
You know, maybe he is.
Right. Well, it's always that, like, wait, oh my God, like, share hangover or whatever it's called. You'll be fine. I'm sure Scott is out.
There's no
Maybe.
way he is listening to the show.
Maybe.
Probably out talking about the Trans Am.
But probably so.
And you know, it's funny. I say this story, and that's the first time I've told the story on air or on the show. And I've been reluctant to do that because it's sort of like I don't like to diss on people.
And you still have the
Yeah.
chance to cut it out of the show if you want to.
Absolutely, and I'm not. I'm not because it's cathartic. And you know, because I do think that this is kind of a real thing, though, that we all, you know, bike touring is not perfection, and I think in some ways. When we talk about it, we're like, oh, wow, it's really cool. And then I like to tell the stories. I like to share the stories like a friend of the show, Ethan Georgina's Type 2 Fun. By the way, thank you for thinking that I came up with the concept of Type 2 Fun.
Oh, yeah.
That is
never mind.
My
apologies.
I don't know
Ethan.
who, because I heard that recently from someone who I didn't think would have. Tomas, maybe when we were at
Oh, yeah.
Call, had
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
of Type 2 Fun. So I think it's now like
It's a thing. It's
You
a
got it
thing.
from Ethan, yeah.
Yeah.
Ethan had
Oh.
mentioned it, but I think it's a bigger thing.
Yeah.
I think I had never heard it
But
until
it's
Ethan
great.
had mentioned
It's
it.
so
yeah.
great. Now I have a label for this
Right.
experience, which
Yeah.
is most of my fun.
I was going to say, a lot of your stories that I know, Adele, I think are Type 2
They're
Fun.
mostly
yeah.
Type 2 Fun. I think I really love Type 2 Fun.
Well, and sometimes dealing with the people that you find hard to deal with on the road, that is in itself a type of Type 2 fun.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
Eh.
I mean, I feel like Type 2 Fun is just sort of like when you get ultra challenged.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
maybe
more of a
Scott
physical
Maybe
challenge.
Scott the biker was an ultra challenge, and I just had to overcome it. You know,
Right.
Right.
Well,
Could we? I didn't think of Type 2 Fun in terms of like a social dynamic, but perhaps it is.
and sometimes maybe that's
Maybe
Type
it's
3
Type
fun.
3 Fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
let's
just-
call it
like
a
we
Type
came up with
3.
that
Hashtag
Time
Type 3
together.
Fun.
Let's
yeah.
call it Type 3.
Welcome to the Type 3 Fun podcast.
Yeah, where
Oh.
you're interacting with someone where in the moment you really are not having a good time, but then later it's great to.
This guy, like the
By
descent
the way,
specialist.
our music podcast is going to be called Type 3 Fun.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Perfect.
talk about you wanted to hear
Well,
about
the descent specialist was easy
specialist.
just because it was like a guy who is really into performance or whatever. Have you ever seen that, what was it, DJ Span or MC Spandex? No. He
my
did
God,
like
this
three
is
different
Oh,
music
it's these guys
videos
who's
about
like, it's performance.
it's all about performance, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
I pump up my tires and I oil my chain.
Yes.
It's
Oh my
was
God.
this ironic or non-ironic?
It was
so,
pretty
So
ironic.
Thank
ironic.
God. Oh, thank God.
It's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
I think he might have started here and then moved to San Francisco.
Oh.
But the trick is, there's some people that are out there on the roads, not because they enjoy it necessarily. Maybe in their own special way, they enjoy the world, being out in nature, conquering hills and whatnot. But there are some people who are just out there. They're at least not out there to talk to people. Mm-hmm. And it was on our way to Santa Barbara. It was the part where you have to hop on the one from, I want to say somewhere south of Lompoc, somewhere south of the grade perhaps.
Yes.
And you're on your way into Santa Barbara.
Yes.
And you have to go down this steep canyon because it's the only way to get there, but it's a
Yes.
freeway. So there's a rest area right at the bottom of that.
Oh, yes. I remember this very well.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Good. Okay.
So we roll in, and admittedly, Adele, you and I both didn't have a lot of pro gear. We were still touring with buckets.
Oh yeah, we were with buckets at the time.
I'm wearing these
Yeah.
cutoff that you hemmed polyester pant shorts.
Oh, the
You're wearing
blue
like
ones?
real clothes. And
Yeah.
You've got like DIY gear. That's
Right.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
yourself it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what you meant?
Do it yourself. Yes. Wait, Brock. What
sorry.
else? What do you mean?
I meant to say DIY, but I
Oh,
said
what did you say?
DYI.
Oh,
It's okay if I'm a dick for pointing that out.
No.
I apologize.
No, because okay, yeah. Anyways.
So we get there.
No, I
and
totally meant DIY. You don't even know.
DUI gear.
You know who told me about that? Scott the biker.
when he was in Kansas.
When he did the Trans Am.
Yeah, seriously.
And he went through a whole chain.
So we roll into this parking space, this rest area, and we're using the bathrooms, getting some water and that sort of thing. And Adele, I think you're inside the bathroom, and I'm outside, and I'm done, and I'm just kind of hanging out waiting for you. And there's this other guy on a recumbent bicycle with like a windshield or whatever. And so like I kind of walk up to him like, "Hey, how's it going today?" And I think at that point he was like, "Oh, I just came down that hill. I'm a descent specialist," and that was like all he wanted to say. Didn't want to have any further conversations.
Yeah.
Just wanted me to know he's a specialist in descent.
And a descent specialist.
Yeah.
So you're good at going downhill.
That's right.
I was like, good for you. Like,
That is amazing.
good for you and the rest of the world. We're all really good at gravity.
Right. So that was just the kind of guy that I think of. He's like the archetype for me of the person who's just like, I'm out here to do my thing, and I don't want to talk to you.
I mean, in some small way, I think that like on the kind of a-hole scale,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like, he's like, look, this is my thing. I'm not going to burden you with more stories.
That's true.
And
He's
maybe
not a
he
storyteller.
didn't have a story. Maybe he was just out for the day.
The arrogance of the descent specialist. We're gonna maybe like give him a couple of points on that.
Well,
But,
the thing that just cracked me up was like, oh, so you're really good at like rolling downhill on
Well,
2 wheels.
And obviously, it is a thing. Like, there's a
Awesome.
technique to it, and if you're doing
Look,
it
Adele,
competitively,
I'm a descent specialist.
Yeah.
And because I'm a specialist, I just don't crash. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
that's right.
I have a 0% crash rating.
No fuck up stories.
None.
None. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
You're like,
it's really
I never
cute
mess
you
up.
on your Pedalshift project with your fuck up stories. I'm a descent specialist and I've never had one, so I'm sorry. I just can't participate.
But can I throw the twist in here? Because the same thing I was
There's a
describing
twist.
earlier, it's a Shyamalan twist.
Whoa.
The same thing I was describing
Oh,
earlier.
hopefully
Oh,
from
wait.
his early
Yeah,
career
yeah.
and not his later.
I read that 538 article, only early career Shyamalan.
Right. I might be the guy who sometimes doesn't want to have the conversation. I hope I'm like graceful about it. Like if I'm in a space where say I bonked or whatever, or say I'm just in a headspace where I can't deal with talking to people right now because I've been out in the woods for so long. I hope I can handle that the right way. But it's a danger that we all face, right? It's like at some point I might be the descent specialist. I'm worried about that.
Yeah,
Whoa.
but I don't
It's
think you
like-
would say that. I think you would
Trying
be
to
like,
nice.
I'd like to bike tour, and right now I need to go.
You're
but it
being
was really
all empathetic.
But it was nice talking to you.
Like track 4 of Sufjan Stevens' Come On Feel the Illinois, when he talks about the serial killer, and then he's like, oh, they're just, I
Oh,
mean,
right.
just like him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the worry
my
is,
music.
that's
That
something I
was a
thought
deep
about.
cut.
And
By the
I'm
way,
just
you
like,
can be a guest on our music podcast.
Only
Type
if
3
I can
Fun.
talk about
our
not
music podcast called Type 3 Fun. Look for it in iTunes
I
starting
know
in
nothing
December.
about NXS.
Yeah.
But
I'd like
Sufjan
to,
Stevens.
I'd like to believe in like the innate possibility of goodness in everybody, even though they're not displaying it. It's like you'd like to be generous in your perspective. So that's
Yeah, and they're, everyone's doing the best they can with what they can do.
exactly. Some people just don't have the social skills yet. Maybe they will someday.
Yeah.
We're so
Yeah, I don't know.
socialized.
I think I want to pull out of the deep nosedive of people that we don't like, and I think I want to. I'd love to get one more story out of you guys before we end this incredibly beer soaked show, which was really fun, by the way. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining. Who was sort of your most fun person that was we'll call a non-bike tourist who
Non-bike.
did ask you questions? So I'm going to start because I had
okay.
my
We're gonna-
favorite guy in Brookings, Oregon.
Yeah.
Which Brookings, for those of you who do not know Oregon, Brookings is sort of it's seen better days. It
Southern
is,
coast.
It is the most southern town of note in Oregon.
They don't
And
have a sheriff's department right now.
no
Lost the funding.
No, yeah, which is unfortunate because they probably could use it.
No timber subsidies.
Yeah, exactly. There is a grocery store, and it's the chain that I'm.
Ray's.
It's Ray's.
Ray's
thank you.
Food Place.
Ray's Food Place. And I'm in the parking lot there, and a guy comes up to me, and he's probably about 4'8". I mean, he is,
Wow.
and he's got an outfit on that looks like he is a train conductor.
Oh, really?
He looks like a train
He's
conductor.
just like playing up his.
He's got overalls
Eccentricity.
and he's got a hat, which I wish I could describe, but it's like it's from a cartoon, and this guy is like playing a train conductor. It was like I was like, is this a Halloween costume? But it's July, I mean, it's. And he's like, and he's got this really high pitched voice, and because he's a shorter gentleman, and I'm like,
Shorter vocal cords.
a shorter, I guess, I don't know. And he's like, hey, where you coming from? The usual
Yeah.
questions. Where
Yeah,
you
yeah.
coming from? And I'm just like, I started in Portland. Oh, Portland, that's a long way away. How much does your bike weigh? and I said, and I'm sitting there going, I'm just fascinated with this guy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm so enamored with him. He's got such a great personality. Just like he's the type of guy that you're just like, I I want to engage with you because he's just different than any person I've ever seen physically, and he's got this charisma about him.
I'll tell him anything. I'll answer these questions.
I'm going to answer all the questions that we always get, that we're like, we wish we could print out cards and hand.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
my bike weighs
but
about
you're
40
happy
pounds.
to.
Yeah.
We talked about the
share.
card idea before. It's a great idea.
We've talked about it. For
I used to do
sure.
that with my dearly beloved and lost pug Louie, because people would always be like, "What kind of dog is it? It is a pug. Is he a boy or girl? He is a boy."
Like an individual
and I'm
card
handing
for
cards.
each
By the way,
question.
visually, I'm handing these cards out for all of you who are listening. And it's like, how old is he? He is 7 years old. I didn't know they made them in black. Yes, they make them in black.
They make them in black.
Okay, seriously, that's the question you always get. Right? So anyway, I'm talking to this guy, and I'm so saddened that I did not get this gentleman's name, because he was amazing. And I got to the point, and I'm just sort of riffing with him, and I get to the point where, I'm like, I was gonna go all the way down to the Mexican border, but I really didn't want to sell myself short. And it's like a balloon out of my mouth saying, "Sell myself short."
Oh,
I'm telling to
and
this
he's a
4'8"
small
guy,
man.
and he's
Yeah.
a small man, and I'm thinking, I am the biggest jerk in the world. I can't believe I just did that. I didn't intend to do this. I celebrate this man. He is so cool, and I just made an inadvertent short joke. And he goes, "Huh, short like me."
Oh,
God.
that's
It
fantastic.
was that moment may have brought me more joy than any other moment that I've ever had. I like I said, I want to pull out of the tail dive of dealing with people like Scott the biker.
Right.
there's
With
other good
that,
folks.
and because I do think that the vast majority of interactions we get, even with the people who are asking these questions that so from time to time we wish we had cards that we could give them.
Right.
Sometimes you have that interaction with the guy that was short guy, which I so wish I knew his name so I could give him true justice, because he was an amazing soul, and it was just one of those things. So I'm wondering, have you guys met anybody who was sort of a non-bike tourist who asked you questions, or maybe gave you a little trail magic out there, passing you some water or something like
Totally.
that? What's sort of your best story for that?
Right.
I
You got one?
was thinking of those brothers that we met last summer.
Oh, yeah.
The brothers out near the Wallowa Mountains.
I think I remember this story. This is good.
Northeastern Oregon. And we went out to this river. I don't remember the name. It was wild and scenic, and I think it started with
Yes.
an M. Do you remember?
Well, it was on the way to Enterprise.
Things that start with M.
Things that start with M.
And it was
Anyways,
right after
oh
Elgin,
my God,
Oregon.
I'm going to remember it. Right, it's right after Elgin.
Password is
The name of the river is irrelevant. So we camped there, and there were these two brothers. One was from Pendleton, and the other was from near Pendleton, Oregon. And they were out for their annual fishing trip. And they, to me, they seemed just sort of I don't know, maybe your typical redneck dudes that maybe I wouldn't want to talk to them, except that they started talking with Brock first.
Right. We talked at the firewood place.
So did they buy you firewood?
They did buy us firewood.
First of all, they were awesome because they bought us firewood, and then
they invited us over to their fire.
and they had so much beer. They drove it so much good beer. It
Really?
it was like Deschutes or Bridgeport. It was
Nice.
really good beer.
Who would have guessed?
So we just chatted with them for an hour or two around their fire, and they were super cool guys. And then the next morning, I just remember one of the brothers coming up and, he made pancakes for us. So he gave us pancakes. And then he walks up with a thing of Mr. Boston's blackberry brandy. And he was like, "Need a little syrup for those pancakes?" And we were like, "Yes, we do."
Yeah.
And so we were pouring blackberry brandy on our pancakes, and it was just wonderful. He was so generous and so kind, and two really cool guys, and it was nice that we got to be part of their little bonfire brother powwow for the evening.
Yeah.
And I think they to them, we were such an eccentricity.
Oh, yeah.
We were such freaks to them. They were just you guys are crazy, you're so weird.
When was the last time you showered?
Yeah, totally. They we were so weird to them, but they were just very inclusive in a cool
Totally.
way. So So those were the two guys who came to mind first for me. What about you?
Minam was the name of the place. I just looked it
Minam,
up.
thank you.
Yeah.
It did start with an M.
If only a Google device existed in
I
this
know.
place.
I know. If
And Brock
only
found it.
there was
Yeah.
the internet. So who are you thinking of, Brock?
Well, technically, he was a bicycle tourist, but
That's
he was
fine.
also
That's fine.
homeless. He was the Amador kid that we met up at which bay was it? Around Tahoe. It was this guy who was standing at a rest area and singing to strangers.
Oh, that guy.
And he knew all kinds
Emerald
of old
Bay.
classic songs.
Emerald Bay.
Was it? Okay, on Lake Tahoe on the east side.
The south part of Tahoe, yeah.
West side, excuse me.
Southwest. Yeah.
Yes. And he was just up there. He was he was singing for his supper. You know, he was like taking donations and
He
singing
wasn't a
classic
kid.
songs.
He was like an old guy.
He was like 65 or
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he had I think a couple of things strapped to his bicycle that he said various things that
he had
used
a
to live outdoors. He had a
baseball
baseball bat, most notably
To
tied
fend
across.
off the tweakers.
Yes, tweakers, as he said. So, but yeah, he was there just singing stuff. I think he was singing, these are a few of my favorite things when we rolled up and went to look over the overlook. And, we talked to him for a little bit, and he shared his health secrets with us. And
he sang us a song.
Sang us a song. Yeah, well, he...
On request or just,
No, he said, "You're a pretty lady.
Yep.
Have your man stand there with you. I'm going to sing you a song."
It was so cute.
And the song was? What was
Forget
this?
now.
It was
honestly.
some old ballad.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I didn't recognize
Some love
it.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was.
It was a deep cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but this guy was so he was so nice and so genuine. I felt like it. Like there was very little bullshit with him. You could tell he was just doing what he does.
Well, and it was cool because I felt like everyone else who was there had kind of, you drive there in your car and you look at this beautiful overlook. And so he's singing and people are maybe giving him $1 here or there. But since we came in on bikes, he was like, "Oh, you guys biked here."
Yeah.
And he had biked there. And so there was like this like nice connection that I felt like we had. Whereas other people were just sort of like looking at him and thinking like, "Oh, he's kind of weird."
Totally.
Which I thought too. But then
But he was
we
nice.
talked to him for a while and he's
Yeah.
a super nice guy.
Totally. He gave me his phone number. I wonder if I still have that.
Oh, yeah, he
I
did.
need to send him a text message. I'm assuming it's a textable phone.
You should try that.
Anyways. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed meeting that guy. He was super cool.
Oh, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like we pulled out of the nosedive of the people we didn't like.
Thank you.
It's so easy.
Talking a
Thank you,
little, yeah, I'm about positivity. It was funny because a few episodes ago, I think I was like, I like to focus on positivity, and then I just realized in the middle of this one, it was like, wow, we're going to the dark place.
Well,
It's so
maybe we should-
easy.
Right, right.
But it's true, there is a balance out there, and it's important for us to, I think, present bike touring as what it is, and
All of its aspects.
yeah, because I feel like that there's some listeners to this show that maybe haven't gone out on their first tour yet, and I think that they sort of maybe live a little bit vicariously, or they've only done it once and they haven't done a bigger tour and they've just done some weekend stuff. And I super celebrate all of that.
Yeah.
And for those of us who have done some bigger stuff, it's sort of interesting to maybe give or hashtag interesting to let them know about sort of some of the things that maybe are a little bit on the, I don't want to say negative side, but they're the sort of the balanced part of the
yeah.
lightness and unicorns and rainbows.
And perhaps if you haven't gone out on a bike tour, hearing of these eccentric people might lure you in. You're like, I want to experience that eccentric part of the world. I want to be asked how much my bike weighs. Maybe this will prepare you, and you'll be like, hey,
Maybe you have a super heavy bike.
I welcome
Yeah.
these questions.
Yeah.
And if
So-
anybody knows the short guy in Brookings, Oregon, and you know his name, please let me know, because that
Right.
guy, honestly, there is, as much as I remember people like Scott who drive me crazy, I remember this guy. And I'm just sort of like, that's why I like, and I never reject those questions. And,
Right.
even when I'm a little bit frustrated by them, I'm like, maybe it's 1 out of 100 times I get the short guy and I make the inadvertent short joke, and then he laughs and says, short, like me.
Let's play this out, see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've had more interesting, good experiences than negative. And every once in a while, it's a little bit good to vent about the negative. But
Yeah.
really focusing on the positive, that's why we do this kind of stuff.
Totally.
So, yeah. Adele, thank you so much for being on. Oh, did you have something else?
I was just going to say, could I put one more short fuck up?
Please, yes. I was. Yeah. Let's.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. This is bonus
Rewind.
fuck up. Bonus fuck up.
Say you start in Fort Collins, Colorado, hypothetically at 4,000 feet elevation. Then you climb to 7,000 feet elevation to Estes Park. And then you drink 2 enormous bottles of awesome beer from New Belgium Brewing.
Yes.
The next day, you may have altitude sickness and a hangover and not be able to bike farther than 5 miles.
Yeah.
That happened to me.
Yeah. Let me talk about Denver, Colorado, and its altitude problems on me.
The Mile High City?
Yes, I was there on business and hung out. This has nothing to do with biking, but the same idea.
Yeah.
I had a great dinner with 2 really great friends of mine. and I literally passed out after dinner. I literally passed
Oh my
out
God.
Yikes.
because of altitude.
Oh, yeah.
And,
You
and
just
I
like
see that all
dropped
the
in there
time
all of a
in
sudden.
Denver.
It's
Yeah.
it was just sort of like, it was sort of like, yeah, well, here you go. We're gonna fly you to 6,000 feet, and we're gonna drop you there, and good luck. It's
Yep.
just like from sea level.
They must see that like just people like prostrate on the ground in Denver, just like, oh, hey, he's new.
That's the thing. My friend, my dear friend Lisa, she's like, ever since then, all we do, anybody who comes to Denver and they come visit us, we just hand them bottles of water.
Yes.
It's just sort
Nice.
of like we stop giving them.
Hydrate.
We
Good.
hydrate first, and then we can have our wine. So it's just sort of like, yeah, it was hysterical because I remember the moment really clearly because we're laughing, we're having a good time, and all of a sudden, the next moment, I'm like staring up and I see the dining room lights, and I see my friend Lisa and her husband Nick, dear friends, just looking at me all concerned and shit, and I'm just like, what just happened? Very crazy, very
Yeah.
crazy.
Student alcohol.
Adele, I wanted to say special thank you for being on the show
You're
because
welcome.
this was the first time I got to meet you, and it's just so great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here, and Brock, of course, as
Yeah.
always,
Happy to be
You're
here.
an alum of the show, friends of the show. Thank you so
Aw.
much for being here, and I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you so
it.
much. This was
has
great.
been fun, and what Type 3 Fun, the music podcast, that's coming in 2016.
Yep.
Maybe. We think.
Well, now it has to be.
Yeah, we're putting it out there. It has to. Yeah, we're calling it.
Before it gets any hotter, it'll happen. All right.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net. Lots of great content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through iTunes or your favorite podcast aggregator. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his debut album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Habitat, wherever cool music is available.